F.E.A.R was released on October 18th, 2005 by Monolith Games. It's a first-person shooter that dives into the psychological horror genre, and it does it fairly well. I remember this game as one of my first experiences with a horror game, and as a kid, not only did I thoroughly enjoy the gameplay, but at times, it genuinely scared me. The basic summary of the game is that a task force by the name of F.E.A.R, First Encounter Assault Recon, is called in to contain a supernatural phenomenon. You play as Point Man, and you basically fight an army of clone soldiers and deal with Alma, this spooky girl with psychic powers. It's a really cool story. It's got the scares, it's got the gunplay, it's got a cool feature where you can slow down time, and it's just overall a pretty fun game, and definitely a blast from the past of that early 2000s era of video games. A few days back, I downloaded it to my PC, and I played it for a few hours, and it really got me thinking, do people speedrun this? I mean, I've seen speedruns for games like Mario 64, GoldenEye, Portal, where players are able to completely break the game with exploits and glitches and skips. Was the same possible for F.E.A.R? The answer was yes. Before I start, I just want to preface that a lot of these runs, especially the details and guides, have sadly been lost to time, and most of the research I've done will be based off what's available now. The earliest run that we know of is this run from 2012 by Grubo. It's not listed on speedrun.com, as I can only assume it doesn't fit the criteria set for runs, but interesting enough, it's played on the highest difficulty, and it technically beats out the first recorded run. With that out of the way, let's talk about the first run, or at least from what I've read on speedrun.com, the first recorded run that took place on March 3rd, 2015 by Swart. Coming in at around an hour and 20 minutes, the game is played on the lowest difficulty, and from the looks of it, he mostly just runs through the game as fast as possible. In fact, at least 50% of the run is just pure gameplay.
This is where a lot of gameplay comes into play. It's definitely like a solid 50% of the game itself.
He utilizes various skips as early as 4 minutes into the run, like jumping off the top of an NPC's head to skip a gate. The game doesn't actually allow you to jump from the heads of NPCs, but he human boosts by walking into them at a right angle and then spamming jump, at which point the game then just projects the player out of the NPC you just glitched into with a full jump. 5 minutes into the run, he utilizes a box with bullet time as a means of reaching a ledge to save time on his run. This is called object boosting. From Swart's guide uploaded about 8 years ago, he makes a point that many objects in the game are solid, and you can use them to your advantage to gain height or reach ledges that the game's intended path just didn't account for.
Okay, so in specifics, the physics in this game are a bit weird. So in order to do the box boost correctly, you have to actually throw a grenade, and for some reason that will carry over like grenade physics to the box or something, I don't know. It's really weird because if you don't do it, then the box boost won't work, you're not going to get enough height.
Starting at 8 minutes and 13 seconds into the run is probably one of my favorite exploits players were able to discover. It's called airwalking. As Swart explains, you press and hold the jump key and then spam the crouch button on a ladder, and then it allows the player to float, or airwalk as Swart calls it. To stop floating, all you need to do is save and reload. I think it's one of my favorites because in basic terms, you teabag a ladder to achieve this. At around 10 minutes and 56 seconds in, he utilizes a crouching glitch where he recommends binding crouch to your scroll wheel, and the way it works is you scroll to crouch and then you take one step forward while holding forward, and from there, you'll be able to move at a running speed and a crouch position. This can be super beneficial in areas like the vent shaft he tries to get through here. At 18 minutes and 30 seconds in, he shows how to corner clip. You can achieve this by spamming crouch on the corner of an object if it isn't blocked, and it's tall enough. By doing this, you can move freely inside of the object, and if you run around enough, you'll be ejected out of the object. At around 21 minutes and 55 seconds in, we see the first utilization of pillar climbing. Basically, if you spam jump while at the edge of a pillar, you'll gain vertical height. A higher FPS increases the speed of it, but from a forum post made by MaxiLobes, it seems that the community agreed on a 144 FPS limit that would be fair to everyone who wanted to run the game. At an hour and 9 minutes in, Swart uses what he calls floppy boost. I'll let him explain.
The floppy boost, you're gonna need this weapon right here, or any explosives, but this one is the easiest. You want to be able to see like the floppy boost, or this is the object we're gonna use, which is a floppy disk reader. Shoot out the floppy boost object. What we're gonna do is we're gonna shoot a grenade or whatever this is. I assume this is grenade launcher, I call it that. And the box is gonna fly towards this, and we're gonna jump up on the box and then basically object hover over front of it, because then you're just gonna like stop it in its trajectory. But something like this, you can jump.
It's an insanely hard trick to pull off, which caused him to reload multiple saves to pull it off. You have to utilize the game's slow motion mode and time it fairly well, but if done correctly, it can save a lot of time. The run itself wasn't perfect, but it definitely set the bar high. There were a few areas where he could shave off some time, especially with the pillar climbing as it was difficult to execute, but it definitely showed that F.E.A.R could be speedran, and it definitely opened up the door to a lot of new possibilities and a lot of new runners. Swart improved his time about 2 weeks later by saving around 2 minutes on his run, mostly by polishing up some of his gameplay, and then again 11 days later he brought his record down by 3 minutes. A new record was set by Snowy Snowwolf temporarily
in 10 minutes 48 seconds.
but within a day, Swart had it back.
Alright, sub 9. Whatever.
And from 2015 to 2017, Swart had F.E.A.R in the palm of his hand. That was until October 10th, 2017, when Yuma broke his record with a 58-minute, 14-second run, a whole 6 minutes faster than Swart's most recent run. That with the new patch that became the more popular category to run, Swart unfortunately wasn't able to take back the throne, as almost daily, Yuma was bringing down his time by around a minute or less each time, and for about a year, he was untouchable. Yuma specifically gives props to a few runners. For starters, there's a very optimized run from Overfiend that he states better helped him optimize his runs. The Overfiend run is really fun to watch, and you can definitely see some of its influence on Yuma's runs. Specifically, one of the first runs to utilize something called quick porting, and it looks like this. It's probably the most time-saving glitch by far in this game next to airwalking. You can achieve quick porting by quick saving twice, and during the second quick save you quick load. This will transport you to the coordinates 000, which then allows the player to skip the entire section of certain levels, and it's a massive time saver. Another run that's super interesting to look at is Freezard's segmented run of the game that took place around early 2017. For those that don't know, a segmented run is a compilation of the best times from each level shown in compilation to propose what a solid run of the game could look like. It's interesting to think about, watch, and theorize about because it's 43 minutes and 3 seconds. That's a few minutes faster than the world record we have right now. Being that it's segmented, a few of the levels are actually played on different versions of the game as they play a factor in how fast each level can be ran, but at the very least it's certainly a bookmark in this game's speedrunning history, and to some, the groundwork for lots of runs to come, especially Yuma's. Before we get into Yuma's history, there are a few skips that Swart was able to discover before he stopped running the game. These are the Chester skip, Bishop skip, and new routing for the plank skip. You'll see all three of these used in world record runs to come, but I definitely wanted to give Swart props for discovering, or at the very least showing how to pull them off. From October 23rd, 2017 to October 29th, 2018, Yuma lowered the record 16 times. Thumbing through 16 runs would definitely take a lot of time, so we're going to look at his very last run to see what was most optimized, as the record remained untouched from 2018 to 2019. Other notable skips were found around 7 minutes and 10 seconds in Yuma's run, where you can see he takes a different route than Swart did to access the out of bounds area of the game. To better explain, here's a side by side. At around the 15-minute mark, Yuma uses an object boost Swart had discovered and used in his last world record run. At around 16 minutes and 45 seconds in, Yuma skips a gate by spamming up and right, which he pulls off super clean. The rest of the run was pretty standard. He was slowed down around 22 minutes in by a choppy pillar climb, but he recovered with a new skip called the laptop skip. It's hard to explain, but hitting this laptop at the right angle will project you up to a nearby ledge, and it can save a few minutes on a run. His floppy boost at 44.42 wasn't as perfect as he wanted, but in the end, he saved 3 seconds for his 16th world record. Apart from the better routing and quick porting and the laptop skip, Yuma also just played the game itself fairly well. As I said earlier, 50% of the game is just playing it normally, and Yuma exceeded in that. His runs are still a ton of fun to watch back, and he plays some interesting music during them, so it's worth checking them out. But we still have 3.5 more years of history to look at, and who is going to step up and take the crown? In the midst of Yuma's dominance over the 80% category, a few other runners were attempting runs on their own. Here's Maxilobes, who ran F.E.A.R at sdgq 2018. The run is pretty standard, not necessarily a world record attempt, but showing skill with crouch glitching, object boosting, and airwalking. There were a few areas that needed to be polished, but one thing was becoming more and more clear, that other runners were interested and all they needed to do was better optimize their runs. Which begged the question, was Yuma's reign going to last forever? That question was answered on January 1st, 2020 when KZ finally broke Yuma's record by 1.5 minutes. In probably the most baller way to achieve a world record, KZ got it only after practicing for about a week. The funniest thing about it is that he just happened to ask Maxi Lobes at adgq 2020 what horror game he should run that's underrated.
Because one time he was like, Maxi, out of all the games you run, what should I try out? And I was like, Fear. And he was like, okay. And then he kind of liked it, so he got world record. And I was like,
That is true.
His world record run didn't start out as he'd hoped with a rocky gate jump, but throughout the run, he gained pace. With some old tricks, and some new, and a perfect floppy boost, KZ had done it. Even with the world record, there were moments in the run he could polish, and although he set a second world record just 3 days later that shaved off about 24 seconds, there was still time to be saved.
Oh my god, please stop the timer. Thank you, God. 49:25.
A name we've brought up a few times throughout this video is Maxi Lobes. Maxi Lobe was all over the place. He verified a few world record runs, he ran the game at sdgq and adgq respectively, made the community post regarding the frame limit rule. The list goes on. 1 month after KZ set his record, Maxi Lobes was making great pace. His run was Yuma levels of smooth. Both of his gate skips and his object boost at the start of the run were close to perfect, and he was already on world record pace within 6 minutes of the run.
world record pace.
Apart from a few hiccups afterwards,
Oh, come on, game.
he was killing it. He even played it risky, as multiple times he missed med packs and had to just fully run through areas hoping he wouldn't die.
I keep on trying to pick up medkits and they won't let me pick them up. I only got 6. I got no fucking medkits, dude. I'm gonna die. I am straight up, I'm probably gonna die.
He utilized a newer skip with this chair crouch slide and it was impeccable.
Oh my god.
Then came the laptop skip.
I'm gonna lose the run to laptop teleport though. Laptop teleport is like one of those finicky fucking things where you have no control over whether or not it's going to work, and it's just not going to work. I'm calling it, it's just not gonna fucking work.
He lost some time. To get the world record, he needed to play the rest of the game perfectly. And for the most part, he did.
Sir, move. Fine. Okay. Not too bad.
Floppy boost was up next, and as most runners know, this can make or break a run. Maxi Lobes needed it to be perfect.
Thank you. Oh my god.
And he got it on the second try. The remainder of the run didn't require any major glitches. Maxi Lobes had finally done it. Not only was it a world record, it was the first 48-minute run.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yes. After that last run, fuck yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
His hard work paid off, and this record would stand up to a year before it was contested by another runner named Clowns, who saved it by just 2 seconds on his run.
We fucking did it!
Then about a month later, Maxi Lobes got the record back. With all these runs happening in such a short time, the run was becoming more and more optimized, and Maxi Lobes ran the game very well. That was until Samir entered the picture. Maxi was a great runner, but after he'd gotten world record a second time, he'd stopped running the game entirely.
When Samir and Draga came into the scene, I wasn't doing any attempts at all.
A month after he'd set the record, Samir set his record. Samir's run didn't start out perfect, but for the most part, he cleaned up a little bit of time by quicker movements. Not to discount his runs, but he set a world record only by saving 5 seconds. It's his second and third world record that's way more important. After he set a 48.22, a runner by the name of Draga set a new world record about a month and a half later by saving 3 seconds for a 47.39. Both runs were decent, but with no major skips being found in almost 2 years at this point, the run was really up for grabs for anyone because most of the runs were just dependent on the player's ability to play the game as smoothly as possible. From hitting the gate skip to floppy boost, all someone needed to do was have a super clean run, and that very same day Draga got his world record, Samir fired back. Not by a few seconds, by 40 seconds. To sum it up, Samir had cleaned up his routes tremendously. The run still had its moments,
That was the worst gate clip I've ever done.
but it was still a whole 40 seconds faster and was the world's first 47-minute run. Draga took the title back in about a month, but Samir's run was a pretty refreshing leap in time for the community as a whole, as some of the newer routes set the framework for runs to come. 4 months after Draga took the world record, Samir took the record back by saving, wait, how much time? 42 seconds. Samir was tearing this game apart. A commenter on his 47-minute run asked if a 46-minute run was possible, and although at the time Samir wasn't sure if it was possible as the run would have to be insanely clean, he made that a reality on April 9th, 2022. This run was almost perfect. He seemed to finally nail down the gate skip. He polished up some mistakes from his last run, and utilized some subtle skips like not using the chair around the 29-minute mark for a window skip. He lost time in the urban decay section, but gained back almost 20 seconds in point of entry and took off running all the way to ground zero. His runs are a joy to watch, and honestly his work to save over a minute and a half time across all of the world records is pretty commendable. But as always, Draga was right on his doorstep. Every record set by Samir, it seemed that Draga was always there within a month to break it. The two were really good runners, but Draga always seemed to pull ahead. Which brings us to our most current world record, 46.46, 5 seconds ahead of Samir's record. His run is incredibly optimal, and most if not all of his skips he pulled off very well. He skips fights that take unnecessary time, his object boost was decent, his pillar climb wasn't bad, around the middle point he was back and forth with times but picked up pace around the Alice Wade escort mission. His window skip was solid, he made the laptop skip look incredibly easy, and overall he was just able to polish up some areas where he could save time. Draga's run is stellar, and with most of the game being fully optimized, I don't foresee his record being broken anytime soon. He ran the game recently for a charity event, and it's still very clear he's got the game in the palm of his hands. And I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of a sub 46, as we've seen in the past, all it takes is a solid run and smooth gameplay. But for now, Draga remains on top. Speedrunning the game or not, F.E.A.R is still a solid game and a time machine for anyone looking to relive the early 2000s. It's incredibly fun to play, and the story is really cool to dive into. It goes on sale on Steam fairly often, so if you haven't played it or want to take a trip down memory lane, check it out.
I've been enjoying it. Yeah, I enjoyed it when I played it. I'm enjoying it now.
Oh my god. I was like, the harder I try to figure it out, the less I'm able to do it.
Like playing it now, it holds up. It holds up really well, especially with the gunplay, the slow motion and shit. A lot of fun.
I think it was I was at a friend's house.
I appreciate it.
I remember liking it. I remember liking it back then. But I remember back in the day really enjoying it.
I've played it a few times over the years altogether. But yeah, I thought it still held up well the last time I did play it. I'd recommend giving it a go, especially if you can play it cheap.
F.E.A.R 1? Yeah, F.E.A.R 1's good. I just watched like an introspective... Oh my god. I just watched a video about...
It was a pretty good experience. Being able to do slow-mo in the middle of battle, kind of cool.
Back in the day, F.E.A.R 1 was a lot of fun to play. I actually really wish that they'd do a remake of it. I think overall, like the story of F.E.A.R, like F.E.A.R 1 and F.E.A.R 2 are extremely good. I just think that there needs to be, like, I think there needs to be a remake of it.
For anyone interested in running the game, I would definitely check out the F.E.A.R Speedrunning Discord. It'll be linked in the bio below. I want to give a special thanks to all the runners that helped in the research for this video. Special shoutouts to Yuma, MaxiLobes, KZFru, Clowns, and Draga for all your help. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you all have an amazing day. This has been crypticharry, and until next time, see ya.